I'm going to start off with a question of my own, Mick, which is I've seen over the last few months you use polls on LinkedIn a great deal. I'd say probably most weeks I will see at least a poll from you, and they tend to be on very business-oriented, topical questions. So can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences of using LinkedIn polls and benefits you get from that, and maybe some tips on how to do them well as well?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's interesting you say you see maybe once a week from me. I actually do 2 polls a week. I do one on Wednesday and I do one on Sunday. And I've been doing this for, I'd say, about the better part of 15 months. The reason why I'm doing it partly is also to collect data about how well polls are performing and what is working, what is not working, which I'll come to in a minute. Now, polls are very interesting to not only get people to vote on your poll, and thus you get some input or some direction in where you go. But what I have found is that the gold of polls is in the comments. And then if you know that, people, you need to direct people in a smart way to the comments field, which means that when you create a poll, I think it has to be simple, it has to be to the point, and it has to be something that divides people. Now, I try and find a subject twice a week in business and on LinkedIn to do that. The other thing is, if you have a crisp question, then the next thing is to come up with excluding answers, which means that you don't give the person on the other side who reads your poll the option to say, well, it might be 1, it might be 2, it might actually be 1 and 2, or it might be 1, 2, and 3. I don't really know. People who have found themselves in that situation, they don't vote anymore. They just forget about it. So you need to make sure when you make a poll is how exclusive can I make the answers one from the other. Second thing is always leave a back door, because sometimes people will not say yes or no, but there's sometimes a maybe. For example, I'll just go back to my poll of last weekend. I asked people if they used the oldest trick in the book, which is looking at somebody's profile in the hope they come back to you. The answer were yes or no. And of course that divides the audience, but there's a lot of people out there that say, well, maybe I do, and it depends. And that is when I drive people to the comments, and then people start sharing their best practices. And it's a great way to learn, because there are things that I never would have thought of that come out into the comments field. It's obviously nice that people vote, because the reason why I use polls is that polls are a great way to generate 2 posts. One is your poll, and after you've closed the poll, you've analyzed the results, you can make a new post with what you learned from the poll. So from a content plan, that's a great thing. So there's a lot of good things about polls. Now, polls have gotten a bad reputation, right? Because people are asking silly and stupid polls, like, what did you have for breakfast kind of things, or those type of things. And they've given polls on LinkedIn a bad reputation, which then means that a lot of people kind of like, said, we don't want to see any more polls. But there are a lot of good polls out there. And now, slowly, we're seeing that the good polls are coming up, because all of these people with the silly polls are just going. And I think LinkedIn has tweaked the algorithm recently so that polls don't get as much visibility and traction as they used to. I mean, that at least is my conclusion in the beginning of this year. I think that provides you with some food for thought, right?
Absolutely. And for people who haven't used polls much themselves, what kind of reach would you expect a poll to get compared with you sharing a blog post or some other type of post?
Well, in my case, recently it's been about 2 to 4 times the reach of a normal post.
Interesting.
It used to be much higher, by the way. But recently,
possibly because more people have jumped on them and are using them, so there's more competition for poll eyeballs, perhaps.
Yeah, but also the fact is people are a little sick of polls, and we all know we can train the algorithm to show us certain content and get rid of certain content. So by not voting on polls, people are getting less polls. So that's also a little bit of the calibration LinkedIn is doing to make polls a little less of a view/impression engine compared to other polls. But I'm still getting anywhere from 3 to 4 times the number of views and engagements for sure. Engagement is actually not that much lower, but it's like I said, LinkedIn has tweaked its algorithm on this in the recent 2 months.